does that even mean, Bowers Game Corner?
Ahoy there, YouTube! I'm back again today for another game review, and today I'm very excited to check out Guns and Steel from Tasty Minstrel Games. It's for 2 to 4 players, take about 45 to 60 minutes to play, and it's for ages 14 plus. And Guns and Steel is a quasi-civilization building game in which you are going to be collecting resources, aka playing cards down, and then purchasing more cards. But they are double-sided cards that you'll be flipping, so on one side they will have resources, on the other side they will have special abilities you will be using. You're going to be attacking, you're going to be doing civil things, reacting to other people. It's a small, compact, almost micro game, but is it good? Let's open it up and I'll tell you what I think. Alright then, we're going to take a look at what you're going to get inside of Guns and Steel. So first and foremost, we have our handy dandy rule booklet. It's one large page, double-sided, full color, full of pictures, illustrations, examples. It's very well done. It should have you up and running pretty smoothly. Big thumbs up on the rule booklet. Also, the game is a lot easier to learn because everybody's going to get their own handy dandy little cheat sheet card, double-sided, also very useful for when you're helping to learn the game. And they even include a game setup card for when you're playing, the third, fourth time. So very nice as well. So, in Guns and Steel, you are going to start off with a hand of cards, and then you are going to be trying to acquire various different forms of technology and people and different things like that in order to progressively move up on this track, gaining more cards, more expensive cards, which will give you more victory points, more powerful powers, and then hopefully allow you to acquire these cards on the right side, which are just monuments that you'll get for flat victory points. What am I talking about? Let's go over the components. Let's get into the gameplay. So first, this is what your typical setup is going to look like. You are going to be building a pyramid like so. We have the Space Age, the Earth Age, the Oil Age, the Bomb Age, and the Horse Age. As you progressively go up, the cards will get better. I also want to note I have a 3 or 4 player game set up right now. If you have a 2-player game, you're just going to remove one card from each row. Generally, they're attack cards because there's a little bit less attacking in the 2-player version of the game. On the right side over here, you're going to notice these yellow cards. You will only be able to acquire these cards during one particular phase, and you'll only be able to acquire them if you reach certain conditions. If you reach those conditions, the card will get flipped over, it will go in front of you, and it will give you victory points, which are this symbol right here. How do you win the game, you're wondering? Well, the game is over once all these yellow cards on the side are purchased, or once all 3 of the space cards in the top row are purchased, at which point the game will end immediately. So before we get into what you're going to do on your turn, actually, let's go over what you're going to do on your turn, and then we'll go over the 5 starting cards that each player is going to get. They're also color-coded on the back, which makes them easier to find, which I do like as well. So the first thing you're going to do is called the resource phase. This is where you're going to take one of the cards in your hand and you are going to put it face down in front of you so you can spend its resource. So right now we have food and we have iron, and as you can see, it's on the back as well. So let's take a look at the buy row down here. Let's just pretend that I want to purchase this card, and let's take a look at this card. So right here, it's going to tell you what kind of card it is. It's going to tell you what it's going to do for an action. It's going to tell you what's on the back of it, so this is a horse resource, and then it's also going to show you its cost in the right here. So this one is only going to cost me 1 food, whereas if we take a look at one of the big expensive cards at the top, it's going to cost us an iron, a bomb, and two oils, which is quite a lot to spend. So first phase you're going to do is you're going to play one of these cards, you're going to put it face down. So you know what, I might just put this card face down, and I have to do this. So now I have a food in front of me that I could potentially spend if I want. So next, you get to the development phase. This is where you're going to play one of your cards face up, and then you're going to take that action. So I'll go over the 5 starting cards that you're going to start with so you can see how they work. So this one is going to allow you to replenish 1 food card to its resource side. This means if you have a card like this that's face up, if you play this card, you can, boom, flip it over, so now you have an extra food. Also, this card works on itself, so if you play this card down as an action, you can then use that action to turn this card over to a food. Mining works much the same way. Replenish 1 iron card to its resource side. If you play this card, boom, you would now have a food and an iron. Attacking is going to allow you to attack everyone else at the table, and you have to attack everyone else at the table. And how you do that is you're going to tally up how many of this symbol you have in front of you face up. These symbols are going to be on the red cards and also on the blue cards. So as you can see, the axe and spike, or whatever it is, the pike. And all the attack cards will have something bad that happens on the bottom. So this one will deplete resources, but if you can get one of the more expensive ones, you can actually steal other people's monuments, which is a big swing of points if you're able to accomplish that. So the last kind of card we're going to have is going to be these reinforcement cards, and these are blue cards. These will have attack symbols on them, so it'll have the pike and crossbones. And this will also, these are reactionary cards, so these you will be able to play when someone is attacking you to bump up your defense. And when you attack other people, you have to have more than them in order to successfully attack them. So let's go back to the development phase. So let's just say I'm going to go ahead, and it wouldn't make much sense to attack on the first round because nobody has resources to deplete. So you know what? I'm actually just going to play this card. I'm going to flip it over, and boom, now I would have 2 food. So 2 food's not too helpful right now because there's nothing out here that has 2 food, but next we get to the purchase phase. So in the purchase phase, you may buy 1 card out here. Now, how the purchasing works is actually kind of interesting because you can purchase any card on the board, but as you go higher, they're going to get more expensive, not only on the card, but also on what's connected to it. So I'll give you a perfect example. So if I wanted to buy this caravan right here, it would cost me 1 food. If I wanted to buy this, it would cost me 1 iron. Now, if I wanted to buy this knight, it would cost me 1 horse, 1 iron, and then 1, 2 of any resource. So however many cards are connected to that card underneath it, that's how much extra you're going to pay. So for instance, this cannon up here, if I wanted to purchase that, it would cost me the 2 bombs plus 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 other resources. It would be incredibly expensive to do it, but it would give me a very powerful card early on. So there's a little bit of tit for tat. Do you want to go for the cheap early cards and kind of build your way up, or do you want to kind of focus on, hey, maybe I can get some of these bomb cards, which will give me some really cool special abilities that I will have early that no one will have yet. Another thing when it comes to purchasing, and it shows it on the back, is you will be able to trade 2 for 1 on various different resources, and you generally just go up. So 2 food for 1 iron, 2 iron for 1 horse, so on and so forth. Also, if you put 3 of any kind, you can get an earth, and an earth is just a wild. You will also see some space icons out there, like this one. This will count as 2 wilds, essentially. So that's a very good card, especially for purchasing things. So to start it off, though, I think I will just go ahead and purchase... I'll purchase this caravan. This caravan's pretty good. It's going to allow me to deplete 1 resource and then gain 1 earth, which is a wild. So in order to do this, I put it in front of me, and I flip over this card since I spent this card. This card stays in front of me. It doesn't go into my hand yet. And then that is going to be the end of the round. So at the end of the turn, if you have 2 or more cards in your hand, your turn is over, just completely. So right now, my turn would be over. However, if you're ever down to 0 or 1 card, you're going to pick all the cards in front of you up and put them back in your hand, the face-up cards. The face-down cards, which are still resources, you can keep them here to spend them next round, or you can still pick them up if you would like to. And then the next player will take their turn. This phase, this end of turn phase, is also where you can potentially score these points. So if you are retrieving all your cards and you meet any of the conditions of these cards on the right, then you automatically earn that condition. So for instance, for this one, if I had 4 or more visible civil cards, which are the green ones right there, then I would acquire this, I'd flip it over, and boom, I would have 3 victory points. Also, another nice thing about this game is these yellow cards on the side are going to be interchangeable. So there's 1 different one for each row, so it will never be exactly the same game because you'll have different ones that will be over there. But you're going to continue to do that until all the cards on the yellow side are gone, or until all 3 of the cards on the top row, or 2 cards if you're playing a 2-player game, at which point you will tally up the victory points. Whoever is the most will be the winner of Guns and Steel, and that in a nutshell is how the game is played. Alrighty then, Guns and Steel from Tasty Minstrel Games. What are my final thoughts? Let's go over the pros, let's go over the cons. First, on the con side, game's not going to be for everybody for a variety of different reasons. 2 to 4 players, very restricted player count. Also, this game, I could see it getting samey after a while. This doesn't feel like the kind of game that you're going to play over and over and over and over and over again because the cards are never going to change. Now, sometimes the monuments on the right side will change, but this is a very linear game for the most part. From game to game to game, you're not going to have too many terribly big differences. Also, another con that I have with this game is there's not too many different paths to victory. Like, you can attack, or you can not attack and focus on defense, or you can go civility, or you can, maybe focus on getting some higher cards before other people, but you're going to pay the extra cost. But for the most part, there's not too many branching paths in how you can win the game, which, what is essentially a micro game at only about 60 or 70 cards, I can understand how there's not as much game as some people might want from this game. It feels a lot like Flow of History. When I started playing this, I was like, oh, this feels a lot like Flow of History Light almost. And that's pretty much what I think it is for the most part. And it's designed by the same designer, and I totally just randomly guessed that, which was kind of cool as well. But yeah, so if you're not in the market for something that feels heavy but is light, this one might not be for you, if that makes sense. And what I'm saying here is, if you have the storage space and you're not worried about the compactness of the box, I think I would just recommend the Flow of History over this game. But that being said, let's continue on and then we'll get to the pros. Any other cons that I have with the game? The theme comes across somewhat. For the most part, it's a pretty transparent theme. It's like, oh, I have these resources so I can get this card, and it's going to let me do this thing, and then this card will let me do this thing, and I'm going to do that and that. It doesn't feel like you're really building up a civilization. And that's just about what I got on the con side. Because moving on to the pros, I was thoroughly impressed with Guns and Steel. I really was. I did not know what to expect from this game, and I was kind of blown away by how much I enjoyed this game. And the more I thought about the game, the more I liked the game, because this is, for all intents and purposes, a micro game. It's less than like 70 or 80 cards, and the amount of game that they crammed into this box, this tiny little box, is thoroughly impressive. I just don't think I'm the target market for this game, because I don't have storage limitations, and I don't unfortunately get to game too much on the go. But if you do, this is a huge easy recommendation. If you're in the market for a smaller game that packs a big punch, man, Guns and Steel really does that. And I like the game as a whole anyway. I'm going to keep this game. I actually really enjoyed it because despite the fact that there's not too many different paths to victory, it's still fun exploring those different paths to victory. And it's like, all right, this time I'm just going to attack people, and I'm going to try and get all these attack cards. And you kind of force other people to get those reaction cards or just deal with their resources being depleted. But at the same time, when you do that, it's going to kind of force people to play maybe a different way. Maybe instead of saving up for big cards, now they're just going to start dinking and dunking and getting all these little cards because they know you have those attack cards in your hand. I also like trying to figure out the optimal way to do everything. It's like, all right, so I don't want to end with 2 cards in my hand, so maybe I'll play this card, which is going to let me play another card, or maybe I'll do this. And I like that a good deal. I like how the purchasing works a lot. I thought that was really cool, how you could get all the things at the bottom at just the face value price, but then if you start going higher, it's like, it gets a little bit more expensive. So then you're like, I could maybe hold off to getting that card until maybe next round because I think somebody else is going to buy this, and you might look at the table to assess the situation. I enjoyed this game an awful lot. I really did. It does feel like Flow of History Light, which, that being said, they're 2 completely different games, but I don't know. They just reminded me of one another in a lot of different things they did. I liked it at all the different player counts, 2, 3, and 4 players. I think this is a rock-solid 2-player game. And in the end, Guns and Steel is a good game that I think everyone should check out. I think you should try this out because it's just thoroughly impressive how much game is in the box. But if you're in the market for an on-the-go game, or if you don't have too much space to put your games, then holy moly, this is about as much game as you're going to get in a small box that is out on the market now, at least in my personal opinion. Guns and Steel from Tasty Minstrel Game, one that I can enjoy, one that I can recommend, and I think, actually, this might be my new favorite small box Tasty Minstrel Games game. I like Thieves Market a lot, and I played Harbor, and I enjoyed that, but I haven't played that one in quite some time. But man, so much game in this really small box. Guns and Steel, easy recommendation. Check this one out. If you enjoyed this review, please be sure to click on that subscribe button down below in the comments below. Let me know, what is your favorite lot of game in a small box? So for me personally, I'm trying to think, what is my favorite lot of game in a small box? I might go with Werewolf. Werewolf. If you have just like 30, 40 cards and a moderator who knows what they're doing, I mean, you can get just infinite amounts of game with that. So I would go with Werewolf. But let me know in the comments below. What is your favorite lot of game in a small box? And as always, thanks for your time, YouTube.